Hey guys, SJ Newell here. So, what exactly is going on in these kinds of services? I have to admit, it does seem pretty odd. But does my perception of something being odd or bizarre have anything at all to do with its validity? Of course not. What you perceive as out of the ordinary is almost entirely based on subjective factors such as your upbringing, what you've been exposed to, and your current understanding of the world. So, if you want to retain even a smidgen of a chance of evaluating this topic fairly and accurately, you're going to have to get over whatever degree of culture shock you may be experiencing. And if you have a chip on your shoulder because you were actually raised in these kinds of churches, you'll need to get over that too. So in this video, we'll be looking at 5 of the most common criticisms on this topic. Before dealing with any of the specific objections, I just want to say that I'm not a big history guy, but I do think many of you will find some context helpful here. If you get a chance, look up Quakers, Shakers, and then later on, the Holy Rollers. Reports of this stuff is by no means confined to only this century, nor charismatic and Pentecostal circles. Okay, let's jump in. Criticism number 1. This is either faking, hypnosis, demon possession, or the Kundalini. Has anyone else noticed how often certain critics make claims about things that there is no earthly way of possibly knowing? They seem to know that faith healers don't visit hospitals, and even the reason why. They seem to know which healing testimonies are fake, which is pretty much all of them, which modern tongues are mindless gibberish. And in this case, they not only know that this phenomena is not of God, they apparently even claim to know the true name of the spirit behind it, Kundalini. What's really interesting is many times the folks making such claims purport not to believe in modern-day revelation. So where is this information that they're getting coming from? I mean, there are no passages I'm aware of that say everybody, or even most, who exhibit this kind of behavior are any of the aforementioned. You could name these things as potential explanations for what's going on. It's certainly possible. But on what premise or authority could someone justify making some of the broad, dogmatic claims that are being made? People these days sound so sure of themselves, but the reality is, if you're evaluating from a strictly scriptural angle, the number of definitive claims you can make about this is severely limited. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've long held to a complex and deeply theological conviction. When you don't know, just say, I don't know. Now, some will no doubt say that no Bible verse or revelation is necessary, that what's going on is obviously, and then fill in the blank with whatever you think it is. By the way, debate pro tip. Whenever you're arguing your side of an issue, use a lot of words like obviously, clearly, self-evident. You always want to make those who disagree with you question their own intelligence. Criticism number 2. People claim that this phenomena is not exclusive to groups within Christianity, but actually happens in pagan religions. It's true the outward behaviors don't appear to be unique to Christianity, but as previously mentioned, you would need some kind of special revelation or authority to claim to know that the causes behind them are the same. By the way, I'm glad Christians recognize that these sorts of things have been observed in pagan religions and therefore cannot be used as any practical indicator of the work of the Spirit, which is almost the exact same thing I've been sounding the alarm over concerning works or fruit being used as evidence of one's salvation. Unbelievers not only can, but do all kinds of things outwardly that Christians do, not the least of which being good works. In fact, no matter how common you think shaking, falling down, or speaking in tongues are in other religions, zeal and good works are arguably much more common. Anyway, if you want to claim that because you saw some kind of behavior taking place among the unsaved, this means when you see it taking place among professing Christians that the motivations or factors causing it are the same, and if you want to give it a fun name like Kundalini, Casper, or the Flying Dutchman, that's fine. But obviously, it's just an opinion and not anything authoritative. Criticism number 3. Scripture doesn't mention anything like this, therefore it's not of God. Firstly, we've talked about the concept of argument from silence before. If you want to assume that silence means anything more than just silence, that by God not mentioning it, he therefore doesn't approve of it, you're certainly free to do that, but I'm not aware of any scripture that says this. Secondly, I'm not sure it's accurate to say Scripture doesn't mention anything like this. In some respects, I think Scripture mentions even more bizarre behavior. How about Saul stripping naked, lying down, and prophesying all day and night? Or David dancing with all his might? What would a dance look like if you did it with all your might? Or how about Daniel, who experienced some sort of sleep paralysis, trembling on his knees and palms of his hands? Now, you could make the argument that none of these are exactly like the type of phenomena we are seeing today, or the same context in which they happened in, but I think we could all at least agree that Scripture records people acting in bizarre ways as a result of a spiritual experience. So the idea is not a foreign one. There is biblical precedent for strange behaviors. Criticism number 4. Galatians 5 says self-control is the fruit of the Spirit. These people clearly don't have any. This is one of those plug-and-play passages I've mentioned in the past, where you could plug a lot of things into the idea of self-control based on your own perceptions of how it's supposed to look outwardly, and it's going to be difficult to objectively say whether or not it's true. For example, we know joy is also a fruit of the Spirit. What's a common behavior people exhibit when they have a lot of joy? Laughing, sometimes crying, sometimes dancing, and yeah, maybe even a little shaking. Who among us has the authority to speak on behalf of God and tell us just how much shaking, laughing, or dancing is too much of an expression of joy? And what about the instances we mentioned earlier? Was Daniel lacking self-control? Or Saul? Or the 120 in the upper room? Also, this claim in the first place seems to presume to know that these behaviors can't be controlled. If you talk to many, they'll tell you they're in control. They're simply choosing to yield to what they sense God is doing at that particular time. And finally, criticism number 5. People who act this way are often carnal and lack any real fruit of the Spirit in their daily lives. I can't really argue with that. I can say from my own experience that this does often seem to be the case, but I'm not sure this would equate to an inauthentic experience. The Corinthians were both carnal and yet apparently had all kinds of manifestations of the Spirit during their gatherings, so much so that they had to be told to limit how many should be taking place at once. One could also make the argument that since God is not the author of confusion, there needs to be some kind of restrictions on this behavior. And maybe they're right. But this may come down to a case-by-case handling of these situations. It's not anything you can roll up, shove into just one box, and put a label on it. This video wasn't meant to arrive at a one-size-fits-all conclusion for you guys. Heck, I don't really think any of our content does that. Usually, it's a safer bet to leave the discussion open to learning more and course correcting as we all continue growing. Till next time, see ya. And it's possible you may be blaspheming the Spirit and damning yourself by attributing a work of God to the devil, but hey, you know, it's totally worth the risk if it means that you get to say bad stuff about other Christians.
I'm right here to say when I'm old and grey, I'll be right in my prime, living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time.